I wasted 3 years of my life waiting for someone to keep a promise they never intended to keep. And the worst part is that I knew it was happening. I watched him dangle the future in front of me every time I started to leave, and I fell for it every single time. By the time I finally understood what he was doing, I had turned down job offers, abandoned my friends, and forgotten who I was before him. This is the story of how I lost 3 years of my life to a tactic I did not even know had a name. 3 years where I was so starved for connection that I started celebrating crumbs like they were 5-course meals. And the worst part? I was smart. I was educated. I had friends who loved me and a career I was proud of. But none of that mattered, because I did not see it happening until it had already happened. Let me take you back to the beginning, because that is where the trap gets set. When I met him, it felt like coming home. We met at a work conference, one of those terrible networking events where everyone is holding cheap wine and pretending to care about industry trends. I was about to leave when he walked up and said, "You look like you would rather be literally anywhere else." I laughed. He laughed. And then we talked for 3 hours straight. He was charming, but it was not just charm. It was the way he seemed to see me. Really see me. He asked questions nobody ever asked. He wanted to know about my childhood, my dreams, the things that scared me at 3 a.m. He told me about his difficult upbringing, his struggles with his family. He made me feel special, like I was the only person who could understand him. Within 2 weeks, he was calling me his soulmate. Within a month, he was talking about moving in together, about the life we were going to build, about how he had never felt this way before. And I believed him. Because why would someone lie about that? I did not know yet that intensity is not the same thing as intimacy. I did not know that speed is a red flag, not a green light. But I learned. The shift happened slowly. So slowly that I did not notice it until I was already deep in the fog. The constant texts started to taper off. The plans we made for the future, buying a house, traveling to Japan, starting a business together, those plans started to feel like they were always just out of reach, always being pushed back. He was stressed at work. His mother was unwell. The timing was not right. And I told myself it was fine. I told myself that the honeymoon phase had to end eventually, that this was just us settling into something real. Except it was not sustainable. It was a famine. He would come home and go straight to his phone, scrolling for hours while I sat next to him on the couch. If I asked him a question, he would respond with one-word answers. Fine. Yeah. Whatever. If I suggested we do something together, he would sigh like I had just asked him to run a marathon. And then, just when I was about to pull away, just when I was starting to feel that cold dread in my stomach, he would do something nice, something small. He would look up from his phone and ask how my day was. He would pick up takeout from my favorite restaurant. He would put his arm around me while we watched television and kiss the top of my head. And I would melt. I would think, see? He does care. He's just been stressed. We're fine. I did not realize I was being trained. I did not realize that this randomness of when affection comes is one of the most powerful tools of control that exists. It is the same mechanism that makes people addicted to slot machines. You keep pulling the lever, you keep hoping, because you got a payout once, and maybe, just maybe, you will get one again. I was pulling that lever every single day. The thing that messed with my head the most was the way he made me question whether I was asking for too much. I remember one night, about a year in, I asked if we could have a date night. Just the two of us, no phones. I suggested a restaurant we used to go to when we first started dating. He looked at me like I had just asked him to donate a kidney. "Why do we need to go out?" he said. "We see each other every day. We live together. Isn't that enough?" And I felt this wave of shame wash over me, like I was being needy. So I backed down. I said, "Never mind. It was fine." We ordered pizza. He ate it in front of his laptop while answering work emails. I sat on the other side of the couch scrolling through my phone, feeling like I was living with a stranger. But I told myself this was normal. This was what long-term relationships looked like. The butterflies fade. You settle into routine. I told myself I was being unrealistic, that I needed to grow up and accept reality. Except the reality I was accepting was not normal. It was neglect dressed up as maturity. And every time I tried to bring it up, every time I tried to say, I feel lonely, or I miss you, he would flip it. He would say I was being dramatic. He would say I was putting too much pressure on him. He would say he was doing his best, and if his best was not good enough for me, then maybe I should find someone else. And I would panic. I would apologize. And he would soften. Just a little. Just enough to make me think I had gotten through to him. But nothing ever changed. The recording impulse started about 18 months in. I would have conversations with him where he would say something hurtful, something about my weight, my career, my friends, and then 2 days later, when I brought it up, he would look at me like I was losing my mind. I never said that, he would say. You are remembering it wrong. No, I would insist. You said it. You said I was getting lazy about the gym. You said my friends were a bad influence. I said you seemed stressed and maybe exercise would help. I said your friends party a lot. You are twisting my words. And I would feel this vertigo, this sense that the ground was shifting under my feet because I knew what I heard. But he was so calm, so certain, so reasonable that I started to doubt myself. I started writing things down. I started keeping a journal just so I could prove to myself that I was not losing my grip on reality. And that should have been the sign. That should have been the moment I realized something was deeply wrong. But instead, I convinced myself that I was the problem, that I was too sensitive. I was gaslighting myself on his behalf. The future always felt like it was right around the corner. We were going to get engaged. We were going to buy a house. We were going to travel to all the places he promised. But every time I brought up a timeline, every time I tried to pin down an actual plan, he would get vague. Soon, he would say, when things settle down. But things never settled down. There was always a reason. He was waiting for a promotion. He was dealing with family drama. He was stressed about money. And I waited. I put my life on hold. I turned down job opportunities in other cities. I stopped making my own plans because everything was about us, about our future, about the life he kept promising we would build together. Except we were not building anything. I was standing still while he kept moving the finish line further and further away. And the cruelest part? I think he believed it when he said it. I think in those moments, when I was pulling away, he genuinely wanted to keep me. So he would make those promises, and he would mean them in the moment. But the moment would pass, and the promises would dissolve like smoke. Year 2 was when I started to feel like I was losing my mind. I would have these moments of clarity where I would think, how did I get here? I had friends I barely saw anymore. I had hobbies I had abandoned. I had a career that was stagnating because I was too exhausted from managing his moods. And yet, I could not leave. Because every time I started to pull away, he would give me just enough to keep me hooked. He would have a good day and be the person I fell in love with. He would laugh at my jokes and hold my hand. He would plan a surprise date or buy me flowers, and I would think, this is it. This is the turning point. But it was not a turning point. It was a crumb, a tiny morsel of affection designed to keep me from walking out the door. The crumbs always came at strategic moments, when I was quiet and distant, when I stopped trying to engage, when I started to build a life outside of him. That is when he would suddenly be interested. It was not love, it was a leash. And the worst part was that I could see it happening, and I still could not stop myself from hoping. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. It was not dramatic. It was just a Tuesday, and I was exhausted. I had been carrying the entire weight of our relationship for months. I was the one initiating every conversation. I was the one planning everything. I was the one doing all the emotional labor, all the compromising, all the sacrificing. And I was so tired. That morning I woke up and looked at him sleeping next to me, and I felt nothing. Not love, not anger, not even resentment. Just this vast, empty indifference. And that scared me more than anything else. because indifference means you are done. That night when I came home, he was on the couch, scrolling through his phone like always. "Hey," I said. "Hey," he said, not looking up, and I stood there watching him. And I realized he was comfortable. He had me exactly where he wanted me. I was giving him everything, and he was giving me the absolute bare minimum in return. And I was accepting it. I was not just accepting it, I was grateful for it. That night, I started looking back through my journal, and as I read through months of entries, I saw the patterns so clearly it made me nauseous. Every time I pulled away, he pulled me back. Every time I set a boundary, he pushed against it, until I gave in. Every time I asked for more, he made me feel like I was asking for too much. It was not accidental. It was a strategy, and it was working. I spent the next few weeks just watching, really watching, and once I saw it, I could not unsee it. His good behavior was always reactive, never proactive. He did it when I was pulling away, when I was starting to remember that I had value outside of this relationship. The promises about our future always came when I was sad or lonely. But when I was stable, when I was happy, those promises disappeared. He never apologized. Not really. He would say, "I am sorry you feel that way," but never, "I am sorry I did that." And I had stopped being myself. I had become so focused on managing his emotions that I had forgotten who I was before him. I was not in a relationship. I was in a hostage situation, and I was the one holding the key. The moment I decided to leave was not cinematic. I just woke up one morning and knew with absolute certainty that I could not do this anymore. I spent a few weeks getting my ducks in a row. I talked to my friends. I talked to my family. I found a new place to live. I made a plan. And then one Saturday afternoon, I sat him down and said, "I am leaving." He looked genuinely shocked. "What? Why? What did I do?" And that question told me everything I needed to know. Because he genuinely did not see it. In his mind, he had done nothing wrong. I could have explained it to him, but I knew it would not matter. He would deny it or minimize it or turn it around on me. So I just said, "I am not happy, and I have not been happy for a long time." He tried every tactic. He got angry first. When that did not work, he got sad. He cried. He told me he could not live without me. When that did not work, he made promises. He would change. He would go to therapy. He would be better. And for a moment, I felt myself wavering. But then, I remembered the dishwasher. I remembered standing in my kitchen, feeling grateful that a grown man had cleaned up after himself. I remembered all the times I had accepted less than I deserved because I was so starved for connection that even scraps felt like abundance. And I said no. I moved out 2 weeks later, and the first month was terrible. I cried every day. I questioned my decision constantly. I wondered if I had made a huge mistake. But then something started to happen. Slowly, gradually, I started to remember what it felt like to breathe. I started seeing my friends again. I started making plans for my own future. And I realized how small my life had become, how much space I had been giving to someone who gave me almost nothing in return. I also started to see how the pattern had affected me. I would go on dates and find myself overreacting to basic decency. A guy would text me back within an hour and I would be shocked. A guy would ask me about my day and actually listen, and I would feel overwhelmed with gratitude. My baseline for acceptable treatment was so warped that normal felt extraordinary. It took me months to recalibrate, months to remember that I deserved more than crumbs, months to stop flinching every time someone showed me kindness. But I did recalibrate, and when I finally felt ready to date again, I knew exactly what to look for. I knew the red flags, I knew the tactics, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that I would never again mistake intermittent affection for love. So here's what I learned the hard way, what I wish someone had told me 3 years ago. If you are reading this and something is resonating, if you are feeling that sick recognition in your gut, listen to that feeling. Your intuition is not broken. You are not imagining it. That voice in your head that keeps saying something is wrong, that voice is right. I learned to pay attention to how I felt most of the time, not just during the good moments. I was anxious more often than I was calm. I was walking on eggshells constantly. That was not love. That was a power dynamic. And if you find yourself feeling grateful for things that should be baseline expectations like respect or basic communication, your standards have dropped so low you cannot even see them anymore. You should not have to celebrate someone for doing the bare minimum. That is survival mode. Look at the pattern of their behavior, not the individual moments. Anyone can be nice for a day when they think you are about to leave. What matters is consistency. Do they show up for you when things are stable, or only when you are pulling away? Do they keep their promises, or is there always an excuse? If you are constantly defending their behavior to your friends and family, stop and ask yourself why. Your friends can see what you cannot see because they are not in the fog. And if you are keeping a journal just to prove to yourself that you are not making things up, if you feel the urge to record conversations because you do not trust your own memory anymore, that is abuse. That recording impulse is your survival instinct, screaming at you that something is very wrong. Notice when their affection shows up. Does it come when you are happy and secure, or when you are about to walk away? If their kindness only appears when you are leaving, that is not love, that is control. Here is the hardest truth. They are not going to change. I know you can see who they could be. I know you remember who they were in the beginning, but that person is not who they actually are. That person is a mask they wear when they need to reel you back in. People do not change because you love them hard enough. And if they have not changed by now, if they keep making the same promises and breaking them, they are showing you exactly who they are. Believe them. Set boundaries and enforce them immediately. Do not explain. Do not justify. Just state the boundary and hold to it. If they yell at you, you leave the room. If they violate the boundary, there are consequences every single time. And if you cannot set boundaries without them being violated or punished, you are not in a safe relationship. You need to get out. I know leaving is terrifying, but you are not throwing anything away. They already threw it away every time they chose to manipulate you instead of respect you. You are not abandoning them. You are choosing yourself. And you deserve to choose yourself. If you cannot leave right now, if you share children or are financially dependent, then protect yourself emotionally. Make yourself as uninteresting and unreactive as possible. Stick to boring topics. Do not share your feelings or vulnerabilities. Talk about the weather. Talk about logistics. Keep your responses brief and emotionless. It sounds cold, but it is survival. They feed on your emotional reactions. If you stop giving them that, you take away their primary source of control. Stop trying to make them understand your perspective. They will not. Accept that they will never see it the way you see it. Accept that you will never get the apology you deserve, and then let it go. Not because they deserve your forgiveness, but because you deserve to stop carrying the weight of their dysfunction. Document everything if you need to, especially if you share children. Keep records of conversations, of promises made and broken. Not to show them, but to keep yourself grounded in reality when they try to gaslight you. Find your people. Talk to friends and family. Find a therapist if you can. Join communities of people who have dealt with similar situations. You need people who can remind you that you are not alone. And be patient with yourself. This kind of manipulation rewires your brain. It is going to take time to undo that damage. There will be days when you miss them, when you remember the good times and forget the bad. That is normal. That is not evidence you should go back. That is just your brain grieving what you thought you had. Let yourself grieve. Let yourself be angry. Let yourself feel all the complicated emotions. Just feel it and trust that it will get easier. And it will get easier. I promise you. You will start to notice that you are not walking on eggshells anymore. You will start to have energy again. You will rebuild your sense of self. You will remember what you like, what you want, what makes you happy, and eventually you will recognize your own worth again. You will stop accepting crumbs. You will raise your standards back to where they should have been all along. You will meet people who treat you well consistently. You will have relationships where you do not have to beg for attention or affection. And when that happens, you will look back at this time and understand how much you were settling, how much you were tolerating. You will also understand that leaving was not giving up. It was the bravest, strongest, most self-respecting thing you could have done. You deserve someone who shows up for you consistently. You deserve someone who keeps their promises. You deserve someone who makes you feel safe, who makes you feel seen, who makes you feel like you matter. And if the relationship you are in right now does not give you those things, if it leaves you feeling anxious and exhausted and small, then it is not the right relationship, no matter how much time you have invested. Because real love does not make you feel like you are losing your mind. Real love does not leave you celebrating crumbs. Real love does not require you to shrink yourself down to make someone else comfortable. Real love feels steady. It feels safe. It feels like home. You deserve that. You deserve all of that. So if you recognize yourself in this story, I need you to know something. You are not broken. You are not too sensitive. You are not asking for too much. You have just been in a relationship with someone who benefits from you believing those things. And you can leave. You can choose yourself. You can walk away from the crumbs and find the meal you have been starving for. It is going to be hard. It is going to hurt. You are going to doubt yourself 1,000 times, but you are also going to survive it. You are going to come out the other side stronger and wiser. You are going to be okay. Better than okay. You are going to be free. And that freedom, that peace, that feeling of waking up without dread in your stomach, it is worth every hard moment it takes to get there. If this resonated with you, hit that like button so this reaches someone else who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more content about navigating these situations with your dignity intact. And comment down below what you have learned with these signs. You are not alone in this. So many of us have been exactly where you are right now. We made it out. You will too. Take care of yourself. You matter more than you know.